Greetings. This is Positivologist Lynette Turner, and welcome to the Positivologist is in the house. I hope you have a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, a nice cool drink, have a seat in your favorite chair, your favorite couch, and thank you so much for joining me. You can connect with me at www.positivebliss.com. So the Positivologist is in the house is a show that focuses on living your life from a positive perspective. Now, this isn't to say we don't have our challenges. We all do. But we can get up every day and make a decision about how we're going to deal with those challenges. We can walk towards the light, or we can fall into a dark hole and stay there. So we all fall into the dark hole, but I suggest we pick ourselves back up and move towards the light, living the most positive life possible. So I have the pleasure and the joy of connecting with the most amazing people to talk about what the journey to living a positive life is all about. And tonight I'm very excited to have my friend Sharon C. here with me. Hi, Sharon.
Hi, Lynette.
Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And
Thanks.
Sharon, you can just see from looking at her, she's very perky and energized. And
I'm fidgety, so.
Fidgety, real fidgety. And so she's going to help us understand how to be healthy and vibrant. That's the word she's going to talk about, and lively. And I'm going to at first turn it over to Sharon so she can tell us a little bit about herself. And do not be shy about your wonderful self, telling us a bit about yourself. And also at the top, tell us how the viewers can connect and reach out to you. We'll do this again later in the show. But I'm going to turn it over to you, Sharon, and then we're going to dive in. We have a lot of wonderful questions we're going to talk about. We're going to learn a lot. But first, take it away. And again, welcome.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Well, my name is Sharon C. Excuse me, and the name of my business is vitalizedwellness.com. So that's where everyone can find me. And I am a certified holistic health and nutrition counselor. And really simply what that means is I help people to reach their health and fitness goals. And one of the ways I do that is by coaching them and supporting them. But I really want to see people live a vibrant, healthy life. And for me, that means being able to have all the energy and stamina that you want to have to be able to do anything in the world that you want to do. I don't ever want someone to be able to not do something just because they don't have the energy. So that's one of the things that is really important to me.
Well, I think you're one of those people that's actually talking the talk and walking the walk, because every time I see you, that's what it looks like and feels like to me. So, you eat healthy, you exercise, you're always out and about doing things in nature. So tell our viewers, were you born this way? Did something happen to trigger you to live your life in this manner? Talk to us about how you got from where you were to where you are now.
Well, I think I've always been kind of energetic. I was never a kid to be sitting in front of the television. I was always out in the yard. I grew up in that era and that generation where, especially when we were on summer break, we left the house in the morning, and as long as we were home when the street lights went on, we were good. And so we were just going and going and going all day. And so from being a child, I always enjoyed being outside. I also think I had really good examples of around me and family of what I wanted and what I didn't want. And I grew up in an Italian Irish home, and my maternal grandparents were the Italian side, so everything was about food. And my Italian grandparents, my grandmother, bless her soul, cooked from sun up to sundown, and everything was made fresh, and everything was whole foods, and it was really good meals, and everybody came together and had meals together. There was a lot of family time, a lot of quality time. My grandparents were really active. My grandfather gardened and swam and walked, and they had a wonderful social life. And so they really were a wonderful example for me. And then I had the other side of the family where on my dad's side, they smoked and they drank and they didn't eat healthy and they didn't take care of themselves, and they were always sick. And I never in my adult life remember my other grandparents ever even being in the hospital. So it was really a contrast. And my maternal grandparents lived to be 99 and 101. Wow. They lived independently until they were 97 years old. No meds, no drugs. Where the other side of the family, most of my relatives didn't live out of their 50s. So I had really powerful examples of how to live your life so that you could be healthy and have a good life. So,
That makes a really good point because we are so often a product of our environment. So, and
mhm.
you had clearly two paths you could have taken, right? Because you were seeing both of these lifestyles, and you chose the healthy one. What do you say to people who, I'm an example of you're doing the right thing, you kind of fall off the wagon of doing the right thing, you have to get up, fall down, get up. How does one find the discipline to keep at it? I mean, you would think logically it's like, well, I know I feel better when I exercise and I eat right, and I know I don't feel so good if I don't exercise or eat right. But somehow, I don't know, you get caught up in everyday life and the rhythm of getting from point A to point B, and how do you stay disciplined to do this? Because
Well,
you do.
I'm so glad you asked that because I dislike that word very much because for me, discipline has very almost negative connotations. It makes me think of
Yeah,
school and school
yeah,
teachers wagging their finger at
doing
you,
something
and
wrong.
yeah, exactly. And what fun is that? So really the way I look at it is embracing a lifestyle. And so, I kind of made it sound like I came out of the chute in this place where I didn't have any challenges and I didn't have any
Yeah.
things come up. And so, really, there was a time in my life where I wasn't making really good choices. And I was in my early to mid 20s and I was sick. I had chronic bronchitis and respiratory infections. I had horrible acne. I was so tired. I was working two jobs. I would leave work on Friday night, stop at the grocery store, go home, and not leave my apartment until I went to work on Monday morning. And most of the weekend I slept. And so I had a friend who very nicely said to me, well, it really doesn't have to be that way. And I was really offended by that at first. And I
Right.
thought, well, geez, you think I want to be sick all the time?
Hmm.
And she said, well, then you have some choices to make. And I thought, well, that was kind of tough love. But, she sat down with me and she showed me how I had choices and that I could choose to put good, healthy things in my body and I could choose really high quality nutritional supplements. And so I thought, all right, let me give it a try, fully expecting not to have any results.
Right.
And I did, and I started to feel better. And
Yeah.
so that's what connected me to knowing how I felt before and how I was starting to feel and how I wanted to feel. That's what helped keep me on track. So it didn't really become about discipline. It was more like embracing a lifestyle and
Hmm.
realizing that I could choose, just like you choose to have a positive attitude and you want your folks to choose the
Right.
light instead of the dark.
Right.
It's about embracing a lifestyle and choosing to prioritize your health and your well-being and put yourself first.
And I would think the more you do that, the easier it will be over time to do that. I would
Yeah,
think.
it's like a muscle. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like exercising and growing a muscle. And after a while, it just becomes second nature and it just becomes who you are. But for a long time, it takes conscious choices and stopping and thinking.
Right. Right. Well, I know one thing that you've embraced is a gluten-free habit, right, of
Yes.
eating. And I know that last few years it seems like it's the buzzword everyone's talking about it. You've been gluten-free
Yeah.
for 20 years.
Yes.
So for those of us, I mean, I think I kind of know what it is, but for those of us who don't thoroughly understand it, can you just tell us what the whole thing is about gluten free?
Yes, I would love to. And, if I can I just tell a little story about how I came to be that way?
Oh, please.
So, okay, so this was like a kind of another plateau. So for a number of years, I did better with feeling good. And then I started to not feel so good. And the short of it was I ended up getting very ill. And I lost about 30 pounds. I weighed all of 96 pounds. And I was going to doctor after doctor after doctor, and nobody could figure out what was wrong. And fortunately, I had a wonderful friend in my life who was a nutritionist. And she took me under her wing and she said, I'm going to help you get better because these doctors are not helping you. And she put me on an allergy elimination diet, very much like what I do with my clients now. And by identifying and eliminating the foods that I was allergic to and had sensitivities to and that my body couldn't tolerate, my health improved again dramatically. So for 20 years ago, I was living gluten-free before most people even knew what gluten
Right,
was.
right, yeah.
But so to answer your question, gluten is a storage protein, and it's found in grains like wheat and barley and a few others. And it's typically a very dense and sticky protein that's really hard for people to digest and break down. Um, but there are two groups of people that really need to abstain from gluten. And the first is those who have celiac disease, which is an actual autoimmune disorder. It's very underdiagnosed and it can make people very ill. But simply what it means is for somebody who has that disease, if they're ingesting gluten, their immune system is going to kick into high gear and start to break down the cells and the tissue in their digestive system. So it's really imperative that somebody with that condition not ingest gluten. Then there's other people like me who don't have celiac disease, but we have a sensitivity or an intolerance to gluten. And it really does affect your body's ability to absorb nutrition from other food sources because it creates a lot of inflammation in your digestive system. So for people, but it's really hard to diagnose because the symptoms vary from person to person. So I have a group that I have that's been gathering for the last several years called Gluten-Free Living. And it's for those folks like me, we come together, but the symptoms I see are amazing. Everything from body rashes to headaches to I had one woman, 80 years old, she was diagnosed. She had fluid around her heart, she had cardiovascular issues. All of that went away when she was properly diagnosed and eliminated gluten. So it's really hard to pinpoint and to know if that's what it is. So a lot of times you'll hear in the news, in fact, there's a couple of athletes now, Mark Teixeira, first baseman for the Yankees. He's having a stellar year, the best year he's had in a long time, and he credits it to going gluten and dairy-free. He says he's much healthier, he's stronger, his body is in better physical condition, and he's having a great year. So it's, for some people, they respond very positively to eliminating it.
Huh, okay. Thank you for that. Now I know more than I knew before.
Yeah.
So another thing about eating healthy, it's just sometimes to me, it's, first of all, I have to admit, I don't have the greatest eating habits. I eat fairly healthy, but sometimes I just don't eat at all because it's like I only have so much time. If I know you need to, in honor of you, I actually ate a healthy dinner tonight. I had
thank you.
green beans and salmon.
Wow.
And brown rice. I said, I'm going to actually eat a healthy meal.
Good for you.
When you hear about healthy food, it doesn't always look or seem very appealing. I mean, how does one, and sometimes I'm sure it's easier for someone to just, I'm just going to go pick up a fast food thing versus like getting the fresh greens. And I guess with anything, it's kind of a habit, but, what's like an example of a delicious meal that would be easy to make that would be good, yummy?
Okay, so like I said, I come from an Italian background. So eggplant Parmesan is a big deal, right? But when you think about eggplant Parmesan, it's breaded, it's fried, it's loaded with cheese, and then it's baked. So it has a lot of calories, it has saturated fats and things like that. So, but I didn't want to give up my eggplant parm. So very simply what I do is I either eliminate the breadcrumbs altogether or I use gluten-free breadcrumbs. And then I bake it instead of fry it before I make the casserole. It eliminates the saturated fats. It makes it healthier. It doesn't compromise the taste at all because it's still dredged in the egg wash. And it tastes delicious. So sometimes we don't have to give up things that we really like. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of tweaking them a little bit to make them a little healthier.
That's a good point. Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
So tell me if you have a certain methodology that you use when you're working with your clients. Is there a certain system that you take them through?
Yeah, actually, I've really taken my life experience and I've put it into my work. For 25 years, I've been working with folks in this area, and through that time, every time I've had a bit of a breakthrough, I've carried that over into my work because I think of it like if it took me 25 years to figure all this out for myself, if I can save somebody a decade or two, and help them.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? So what I've realized is that I've distilled it down to really 4 key areas that I think are necessary to really embody a vibrant, healthy lifestyle. And the first one is an awareness. We really need to kind of take the blinders off and be aware of patterns and things that we do that maybe aren't really serving us and that can get in the way of when we say we want a healthy life, and look at that. But it's really hard to look at your own stuff by yourself.
I think that's why it'd be important to work with someone like you, because we can not be honest with ourselves or not really see what's clearly there, and you can be an objective observer, so to speak, to help
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I use coaches myself at different times in my life for different reasons, for exactly that. Because it's really hard to put ourselves under the microscope and to see our own patterns, where somebody on the outside can see things so much more clearly than we can. So, awareness is the first thing. And then simplifying, I think, for me, that was something that I had to learn. I said yes to everything. I overscheduled myself. I was engaged in relationships and situations that didn't serve me, didn't nourish me, and they drained me. And so that's really important to your health, because if you're getting drained mentally and emotionally, it's going to have an impact on your physical health. So one of the things I do with my clients next is we really look at simplifying your life and making room for new healthy habits. Because if you're booked back to back to back from the time you open your eyes until you go to bed at night, there's no room to incorporate healthy habits. So we simplify and we look at areas where people can really let go of things that aren't serving them.
That's probably kind of tricky, because if
It
you're like
is.
a person like me, or some of us, we just always want to be of service. We always want to help people. We
Yeah.
don't want to say no. Um, so to try to prioritize and not say yes to everything and not
Yeah.
hurt people's feelings, or again, give yourself permission to take care of
Yeah.
yourself is, I think, key and a little tricky, but important to try to do.
Yeah, and sometimes you need support with that, because it's hard to say no sometimes. And
You can
it's
blame it on the coach. Sharon
yeah,
told me to say no. My coach,
exactly.
my
Exactly.
holistic coach, told me to say no.
She said it's okay to say no. No is a complete sentence.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it works, because if you think about it, if you're not filling your own cup and you're not taking care of yourself and you're constantly giving and giving and giving, you run on empty, and eventually
Yeah.
you don't have enough to give to your relationships, and those relationships suffer and you suffer.
Yeah.
So it really is in everybody's best interest to take care of yourself first. So once we kind of get that stuff taken care of, then it really opens the door to be able to look at nourishing your body, because that's really important. So we look at food, we look at nutrition, we look at possible food allergies, we look at all the things that affect and impact nourishing our bodies. And so we spend a good deal of time on that.
So let me ask a question there. So
Sure.
you always hear about how it's really important to eat breakfast. But I'm like one of those people that I'm not hungry first thing in the morning, and if I force myself to eat, it'll actually like give me a stomach ache.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually don't eat breakfast until like late in the morning. I'll have a banana or a piece of fruit or a piece of some kind of protein or something. But I mean, is it true this you have to eat first thing in the morning?
Well, ideally,
You can say yes.
well, no, it's actually that's not true, because really
Okay.
what I loved about the curriculum I did when I got my certification was that it was very much about bio-individuality, and that everybody is different. And no, there's not a cookie cutter program or eating style that's going to fit every person. So what I really look for is, what are the signals? When is maybe your body telling you it needs something that you haven't learned to pick up on that signal? Or if eating first thing in the morning just absolutely is not going to work for you, well, then let's look at when you are ready to eat and maybe step up the nutritional value or quality of what you're going to eat first if it's going to be later in the morning. So, it's really about the person, meeting the person where they are, and because we're all different, and what works for me is not going to work for you.
Right, right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, absolutely. But yeah, it has to be flexible, and it has to fit the person.
Great. Okay. And then there's one more, right?
Yes, there is, and that's my favorite one, because as you know me, I'm very active and I like to play.
You are the Energizer Bunny.
So, but not everybody likes to go to the gym. I enjoy going to the gym,
Right.
but that's not the only exercise I get. I far more enjoy being outside and being in nature and being out in the sun. And so it really is about finding an activity that you enjoy. Because if I say to somebody, you have to go to the gym 3 days a week, then we get into that whole discipline world again. And if somebody doesn't like that, they're not going to want to do it. So really what I do is I spend time with my clients and I get to know their personalities, and I help them to get to know themselves and figure out what ways can we get you moving, where you're going to enjoy it and you're going to look forward to it. So, you know, I have a 3.5-year-old niece and a 6.5-year-old nephew that come to me every Friday. We're playing, we're outside, we're running around. I get to be a kid for a whole day on a Friday.
Right.
You know, I'm the cool auntie, the fun auntie, you know.
Yeah.
And so that's where I get my exercise, and I love to ride my motorcycle. A couple of winters ago when we were getting hammered with snow, I took up snowshoeing for the first time because I said, well, I'm going to
I saw the
embrace this.
pictures to prove
Yeah.
it.
I'm going to get out there, and there I was, snowshoeing all over the neighborhood and up into the woods. And so it's really about finding things that jazz you and make you want to get out and move.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I know there's a lot of people who they're just like, I don't like to exercise. But if you think about it as some kind of a fun activity, but there's got to be something out there. Like, for instance, I'm not, well, I don't mind the outdoors when it's, 80 degrees or 90 degrees, and most people don't want to be outside. That's when
This from the Alaska girl.
Because I'm always like cold and I want to be warm. So, in the winter, not so much. And I'm just not that much of an outside person, but I have a stationary exercise bike. And some people would be bored just sitting in their living room riding it, but I'm perfectly happy riding it. I actually can read a magazine, I can put my earphones on, I can watch the news. So I'm not outside, but I'm still finding a way to get some exercise. So I think you be creative, because I'm one of those people who, many years ago I used to teach in an aerobics place, and ever since then I was like, the work, when I could just do it in my living room, to get up, get dressed, get in my car, drive someplace, pay somebody money, when I could just, do it at home. And so I have, I don't know, I won't use the word discipline, but I have a lifestyle choice of exercising that tends to be at home, but, I'm still doing it. And then I do like walking on the beach or getting outside. But you're right, there's got to be, anyone who says that they don't like exercising, there's got to be some, maybe it's that word that trips people up.
Yes. Yeah, and that's, I don't like to use that word. So that's what you'll see in my program is materials. I call it energizing, where it's not really, it doesn't have to be exercise. It can be something that you truly enjoy that gets you moving. Some people love to dance. I have friends who, as couples, they dance. And I'll tell you, they get an incredible workout doing couples dancing. And so, whatever it is that gets you moving, more power to you.
And I think also probably, you're the expert, not me, but if people know they can start a little at a time. So you know what? Start, ride the bike for 10 minutes. You don't have to start by riding in an hour. Dance for, 5 or 10 minutes. You don't have to start. Because I think sometimes people get sort of discouraged because they're all gung-ho. They've got this thing they're going to do. They jump into it. It's too much. It's too much, too fast. And then you give up instead of persevering.
Yeah, and that's I've had clients come to me who have gotten absolutely beat up at these big box gyms because they go in, on January 2nd, they walk through the door and they have the best intentions and they get hooked up with a trainer or somebody that pushes them way outside the scope of what they're capable of, and they get hurt or they're sore and they don't want to go back. And so it really is important to know your limits and to work up to certain levels. And that's one of the things I help my clients do, and understand that it's okay to only do 10 minutes if that's what it takes to get you, because a month from now you'll be up to 20 minutes. But that's okay if it takes that long.
So Sharon, is there, because I'm very intrigued now with all the things that you're talking about, is there who's the ideal candidate to come to you to work with?
Somebody who really is internally motivated to make changes. So actually probably giving you an example of not my ideal client. Yeah. So a lot of times people will come to me. For years I've done weight loss programs. And I still do, and I still do help people lose weight. But the kinds of people that don't work well with me are people who come to me and say, my son's getting married in 8 months and I want to be a size 8. Or I'm going on a cruise and I want to wear a bikini. Or where their goals for their health are more about an event. Right. Because when that event is over,
they're going to go back to their old ways, right?
Yeah. What's your internal motivation? So really the ideal person for me is somebody who maybe has struggled with their weight for years, or has tried on their own and just not been able to reach the level of health that they want to. Somebody who knows that maybe they're getting in their own way. They don't really know how, but they sense that they keep running into the same walls over and over again, and they've had enough. And they're ready to do the work and explore themselves on the inside, because it all starts in our heads, what we think, and what we believe in our hearts and what we've been conditioned to believe about ourselves.
Right.
So when we change those perspectives, then the outside stuff begins to manifest and begins to happen. So that's really my ideal client, somebody who really wants to look inside and says, I'm ready, take me down the path and support me and help me to be a healthier, more vibrant person.
And I think that would also affect the other people around them, because let's face it, there's a lot of unhealthy people. I mean, you can just walk up and down the street or turn on the TV or whatever. And I think if you are, let's say you're a mother or a father and you have kids, the way you are treating and acting is also going to impact your kids and be a good influence on them in terms of moving forward. And I would think, too, if you can get young kids to embrace this sort of thing when they're little, oh my gosh, what amazing.
You know, Lynette, there was a scary statistic released last year that for the first time in history, this generation of children has a shorter life expectancy than their parents.
I saw that.
Yeah, and we have children now with type 2 diabetes at age 8 and 9, children with cholesterol problems at like 10 and 11 years old. And it starts with the parents, and we really do, as adults, we have a responsibility to set a good example for children. I bring my niece and nephew to the farmer's market just because I want them to see where their food comes from. I bring them to a local farm, and they get to see the sheep and the chickens and understand that that's where the eggs come from, and they see the vegetables in the ground. And I think that's really important for kids to understand that stuff.
Right, and they'll take that with them as they grow older.
Yeah.
So I also know that you talked about this a little bit, that diets don't work.
No.
And, we know many people, like, I'm going on the grapefruit diet, I'm going on the
cabbage soup.
I could go on probably the Twinkie diet. We'll talk about my sugar issues next, if we might. But so I think what you're going to say is because it's a lifestyle and you can't diet. That you should have a glossary of words not to use. If you have a glossary of words to use. This is Sharon's glossary of do not use these words in my presence. But diets don't work. Right?
No, they don't. Because a diet is a temporary behavior modification. That's all it is. So any diet will get somebody a result, but the problem is it's not a sustainable way of living. So oftentimes people do diets because, again, there's something in their life that maybe is date sensitive, or I hear this all the time. I've done Weight Watchers a dozen times. It always works for me. And inside I have to bite my tongue because my response is, well, if it really worked for you, you would have only had to do it once, not the other 11. So it really doesn't work. And so I'm not an advocate of diets, and I've been helping people who struggle with weight for more than 20 years. And it really is about what's in here, and the choices that we make in terms of prioritizing ourselves and understanding why maybe we choose the foods that we choose, or sometimes for a lot of folks I'm finding now, it's strategies. I'm dealing with really busy people, they work all day, they have kids to take care of, and then they get home at the end of the day and they're like, oh my God, what are we going for dinner? Oh, somebody run out and get Kentucky Fried Chicken, or somebody run out and get a pizza. And so a lot of times I work with my clients on strategies and teaching them how to shop, teaching them how to plan ahead, teaching them how to have quick go-to meals in the house that they can prepare in under 30 minutes so that their family and they have healthy alternatives.
And I think what you do too is you're like sort of also an accountability coach. When you have someone to help you be accountable. So here's my issue, of which it's no surprise to people who know me. So, I'm a vegetarian, I work out, I, take care of myself spiritually, but it's the sugar thing. And, I've really tried to, it's amazing. I'll go through long periods of time where I just won't eat any sugar. And I've even tried to track it because they say, well, figure out what the trigger is. So for some people it might be when you're happy, some people when you're sad, some people when you're sleepy, and some people when you're stressed. I'm telling you, I have logged it. There does not seem to be maybe I'm just somehow not seeing it because there's got to be something, but because it can be any of those things. I don't seem to have a specific trigger when it happens. Now, part of, for me, is like, I'm not a good person saying, oh, I can never have a cookie again. That's just not going to work, to say that you're never going to have a cookie. Moderation is fine. And so sometimes I can be very good at being moderate. And then I don't know what happens, and then the next thing you know, I've eaten like a whole, like more cotton candy in a sitting than one person would think is humanly possible. No sugar's too sweet. I think sometimes I rationalize it to, well, I don't do anything else. I don't smoke. I don't do any kind of drugs. I don't drink. I mean, you have to have something. But I know I feel better when I'm not eating. And the other thing is, too, is that people, Sharon, don't take sugar addiction as seriously as other addictions. They don't take it as seriously as alcoholism or other kinds of addiction. But it's as serious. And anyone who's read Sugar Blues, they talk about how it's as powerful as cocaine. We know it has no redeeming positive characteristics. It's extremely addictive. It's cheap. So, I mean, I don't know. What can you tell me?
Okay. Well, so there's a couple of things that you said that I want to address. Okay. The first thing is the food industry is so savvy and so cunning when it comes to creating foods. It's a well-documented fact that the producers of beverages and snack foods and a lot of our convenience foods purposely formulate the foods to create a reaction in your body so that your bodies crave more of it. It's a well-documented fact. So first of all, I want you to understand that, so it's not all your fault. Okay?
And it's in everything. I mean, I get it, it's Twinkie, but it's like you look at just about anything. Yeah. Sometimes I'll eat something that's not supposed to be sweet, and I'm like, why does that taste sweet? And I look on the package because they put sugar in it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's hidden. And another thing that the food manufacturers are able to get away with is naming sugar other things other than sugar. So unless you carry a dictionary in your pocket, it can be on the ingredient label, but you would never understand or know as a layperson that it's sugar.
Right.
The other thing that I didn't hear you say at all, and you probably have tracked your triggers, is that it really could be a physiological imbalance in your body. When my clients come to me and they talk about cravings, I love it because I'm like a detective. And those cravings, I've learned what they mean. And craving different food groups or different types of foods or sugars or certain foods have really powerful meanings, and it tells me a lot about a possible imbalance in your body. And so our body gives us these signs and these signals and tells us to eat things really well-meaning, trying to fix an imbalance or plug a nutritional gap, but really your body doesn't have a nutritional deficiency of sugar, but it could be a number of other things. The other thing, and because I know you a little bit, sleep is so important. So when somebody comes to me and they have a problem with sugar and carbohydrates and severe cravings to almost an addictive level, I have to look at their sleep. And the reason is that our brains produce hormones and chemicals that are specifically responsible for regulating blood sugar, for regulating appetite, and for regulating sugar cravings. And if you're not getting adequate amounts of deep REM sleep and giving your brain the opportunity to do that, you are going to have off-the-chart sugar and carbohydrate cravings all day long, whether you're addicted or not.
I don't get enough sleep. I know I don't.
Yeah, I know.
On the weekends maybe, but and plus I guess the definition of enough sleep is who gets it. I mean, just like everybody's different. It could be 6, 7, 8 hours for some people. But I know that I'm a night owl, so I'm often up late because that's when I feel energized and I get things done. I go to bed, and then when it's time to get up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so tired.
Yeah.
So I don't get enough.
Yeah. So if you were my client, that would be some of the things that I would work with you on, because it's sleep, and then it's also not so much what not to eat, but I would look at the other foods in your diet, because sometimes there's other foods that we eat that can create an imbalance or create more cravings. So it's really being a detective, and it's looking at your real specific issues. And I do a really comprehensive intake where I look at all of those things, because sometimes it's not just about saying, Lynette, put down the cookie. Right. It's really about, we look at what possible, because if you're having a physiological imbalance in your body, no amount of willpower in the world is going to get you to put down that cookie, because your body is screaming at you from a cellular level saying, give me that cookie.
Well, sometimes my body is screaming like crazy.
Yeah.
Not so much. And I just a few days ago, I read something about, maybe it was something on TV about water too, how important it is to, as she has some water, and I have some right here.
I swear I didn't know you were going to say that.
That we don't drink enough water, which makes me have a little water too, and how important it is. And one of my challenges is I'm one of those people that's just I'm really thirsty. Some people are thirsty. I mean, even when I exercise and work out, most people are sweating. For some reason, I don't. So I have to sort of make myself drink water. But I know how important it is. And this report was actually saying that if we're dehydrated for too long a period of time, It actually like shrinks our brain when it does that.
Yeah.
We can't think clearly, we're foggy, we can't focus, we're grumpy, all from not getting enough water.
Yeah, I have a whole list of symptoms of mild dehydration, and most people walk around in a state of mild dehydration. And so the symptoms are just what you said. It can be foggy headed, brain fog, it could be fatigue, it could be muscle cramping, it could be low energy, poor sleep. It can be a myriad of symptoms that really comes down to proper hydration. And one of the signs of, oftentimes we will confuse our body's need for more water with hunger. And so it really comes into play with people who are trying to lose weight, making sure that they're fully and completely hydrated, because otherwise they confuse hunger with thirst.
Well, that's interesting too, because since I just eat when I'm hungry, so at our office we used to have every Friday at noon we get together and have lunch, and when they were having lunch I was just eating breakfast because I wasn't hungry yet, and so I tend to go, and then I'll go to work and I'll say, I'm kind of hungry, and my coworker will say, well, when's the last time you ate? I'm like, well, I wasn't hungry for dinner, but I think I ate lunch yesterday. And they're like, how can how can you like forget to eat? They're like, I would forget anything before I would forget to eat. And where I'm like, yeah. But I know it's important, and I try to be conscious about it. It's a bit challenging because I can travel sometimes, either for pleasure or work, and then you're getting up early, you're in airports, eat whatever you can find. So it is this whole, the whole lifestyle. I'm training myself not to use discipline. Lifestyle changes and things you can do. Like someone was telling me just recently that if you can test to see if you're dehydrated if you pinch like between your finger, if it's
or even the skin on your arm.
Yeah, and if it stands up, that means you're dehydrated.
It can mean you're dehydrated. It also can mean you're protein deficient too.
Okay, well it didn't stand up, so I guess that's good.
Yeah,
I guess that's good. So I'm going to go back a moment to what you offer, because I know you work with individuals of people, and then you also work with groups. What are the advantages of either of those?
It really, again, depends on the individual. There's some people that really, truly thrive in a group setting, that they like to have that interaction with other people. They like to have, oftentimes I'll pair people up in like a buddy system, and they really enjoy a group dynamic. They like hearing from other people and hearing other opinions. And then there's the folks who really desire one-on-one individual attention. And so those are the people that I typically work with one-on-one. So it really depends on, a lot of times, the personality of the individual I'm working with, and also their specific goals. So if I'm dealing with somebody who has a lot of serious health issues, and oftentimes that person I'll work with one-on-one, just because the group setting doesn't allow me the ability to go in depth with that person. But if somebody has maybe less severe needs, then a group program usually is good for them.
So what would you say to someone who, again, I'm thinking of someone who is surrounded in an environment outside of, they're sitting with you and you're completely supportive and helping them. Then they leave your office.
Yeah.
And then they have to go deal with their life. They have to deal with work, which might be very stressful. They have to deal with kids who don't want to eat green beans. How does one get their head and heart space in a place to be able to honor and take care of yourself, but you have the reality of having to deal with this sort of external environment that is a part of your life as well? How do you guide someone? What do you tell them?
Well, I heard two things in what you asked. The first one, I heard a little bit of logistics. So with the kid who doesn't want to eat the green beans, that's an issue to me of logistics and planning. So I'll work with a mom or the head of the household, whoever the cook is in the house, in logistics as far as meal planning. So that lowers the stress level. We get a handle on what the food, the desires and the palate is of the people in the house, who likes to eat what, and then we brainstorm and we come up with ways to deal with that so we lower the stress level. So that's one piece. That's logistics and nuts and bolts. The other piece really comes into the first two parts of my program, which is about awareness and simplifying. And sometimes we need to take a look at who we spend our time with, who we have in our life, what things we're engaged with, and if we don't have the ability to change those things, then it's about changing our attitude about them. And this is kind of where you come in with, you can choose to see something in a negative light or in a positive light.
Right.
And so if I'm working with somebody who really has a stressful job, but they can't, for whatever the reason, leave their job, excuse me, then we work on coping mechanisms to help that person to deal with things on a daily basis at work. And so I have one woman I'm working with who I had asked her to keep a little piece of notepaper in her pocket, and every time she felt triggered at work, to just make a quick note, just a couple of words, and put it back in her pocket. And what that allowed us to do was to see what situations at her job were triggering her, because what was happening is she was leaving her house in this wonderful, blissful state and was having a wonderful breakfast and feeling great, and then she was getting the crap beat out of her at work, and then she would come home at night and sit in the corner of the living room in the dark and eat a whole bag of popcorn. So something was happening from breakfast to dinner that I needed to learn about. So
that's interesting too. Let me ask you, so you just mentioned popcorn. Is popcorn a good snack is it a good healthy snack?
It depends. It depends on the person. So if it's somebody who, say, is hypoglycemic and has trouble maintaining steady blood sugar where their blood sugar goes low, then no, popcorn's not a good snack because it's not going to do anything to support and regulate blood sugar. If it's somebody who doesn't have a blood sugar issue, then a lot of times, yeah. Microwave popcorn, no. It's loaded with chemicals and then you're zapping it in the microwave. So we have an air popper. And we make air popcorn. It takes 2 minutes, and you put it in the air popper, and we season it with all kinds of different things, and you have a healthy snack.
I was asking that because that's one of the things I eat, although I have to admit, it's from the microwave. Now I guess I have to get an air popper. So instead of eating, candy bar, I'll put different spices on it, and I'll even maybe throw a couple of raisins in there.
But for somebody like you, Lynette, who's trying to manage the sugar thing, I would recommend nuts and seeds as snacks before I would say popcorn. Because popcorn converts to sugar in your body. So you're kind of fooling yourself where it's not going in as candy, but it's turning into candy once it gets in your body.
Oh, you try to do well, and look what happens. Oh, gosh. Well, you were talking about stress, and I was thinking one thing I do, sometimes if I know it's going to be really busy at work, really hectic, I'll actually go into my Outlook calendar, and I'll put in a couple times during the day the word breathe, and it will literally pop up on my screen. And
Good for you.
Right, and I will literally stop what I'm doing, take a couple minutes break, stretch, do some deep breathing, because I don't think we breathe correctly. Most people are just short, shallow kinds of breaths, and just really take a deep breath, de-stress, and it's amazing how much more focused and productive and stress-free we can be just from doing that.
Yeah. And there's little things that you can do in an office environment. When I worked, I used to manage small law firms. And so I had my own office, I had my own printer and my own setup. I would always send my documents out to the big printer in the print room just so that I could get up, leave my office, walk across the office, get a few steps in, get my document, and come back. And people would say to me, excuse me, why are you doing that when you have your own printer in your office? I'm like, so I can move a little bit. And so just little things like that can shift your energy and be very helpful.
But before our office moved, we lived someplace where our office was on the 4th floor. And so every morning I would take that, and same thing, people would be like, why are you I'm like, I'm just doing it once a day. But it literally was like, to me, it was like a walking meditation. It was like, I'm here, I'm getting sort of focused and grounded and ready for the day, and I take my time and walk up those 4 steps. And I was just, like you said, there's little things that we can do to really help ourselves be healthier and happier. What role would you say, because clearly we're sort of talking about a holistic approach to health, what role would you say having some kind of a spiritual or religious, whatever people want to call it, because that's part of the whole connection, plays in our overall well-being?
I think it's really important. It's one of those pieces. It's not just about our physical world that we have to manage to feel well. Our spiritual well-being is very important too, and that means different things to different people. So sometimes I work with people who are exploring that. Other times I work with people who are really well-grounded in that area, and so it is really important because it's just another piece of us that helps to keep us grounded. And for me, just knowing that I'm connected to something greater than myself. And that I really find it relieving to know that I'm really not in charge. Even sometimes I think I am. It's somebody else or something else, something greater than me with far more wisdom than I have, is calling the shots. and I'm just along for the ride. And as long as I keep that perspective, my stress level is a lot lower.
Right. Yeah, as you know, I completely agree. And for me, just going back to that place too, that I don't have to carry everything on my own shoulders. I don't have to figure everything out. For me, everything's divinely guided. So
Yes.
everything's going to be fine. If I just remember that, even if I fall off the sugar wagon or whatever, I'm like, okay, where's that sort of strength going to help me, really figure out what I'm going to do and what that next step is going to be in order for me to be as happy as I can be and as focused as I can be and as productive as I can be. I think that's all very, very, very important. So tell me, do you ever work with children or only adults?
I work with the parents of the children.
Yeah.
So, I find that really because it all starts with the parents. The parents are the people bringing the food into the house. The parents are the people setting the example. So I really have to go to, that's really the source of change, is the parents, not the children.
Is there a difference between being a holistic health practitioner and a nutrition counselor?
Yes. So holistic, just the definition of holistic is whole person. So the entire being, not just physical body. So it's the whole person. A nutritionist or a dietitian is somebody that deals more on the scientific or the food level. So a dietitian is somebody that plans meals and puts meal plans together. The nutritionist is somebody that looks at the nutrition that you're getting, how you might be able to benefit by certain nutrients. Oftentimes a nutritionist will use certain nutrients in place of pharmaceuticals if possible. So what I do is really much more about the person. I take those things into consideration, but I don't go into the depth and detail in a specific area like those healthcare providers would do.
Okay. Well, do you have an opinion about holistic medicine versus Western medicine? And I ask that because I tend to, for myself, go the holistic route first, but then if I need to go to the doctor, I'll go to the doctor. I mean, some people are really all the way on one camp or another.
I think there's a need for both. So I always jokingly say I go to my chiropractor, I go to my naturopathic doctor, but if I step off the curb and I get run over by a bus, take me to the emergency room. So I think there's a need for both, and I use both medicines, and I think if you can find a balance and you can find practitioners that respect your choices and support your choices, those two medicines can really complement each other. I, of course, try and go the natural approach whenever possible, but there are times when you do need to use Western medicine. You do need sometimes a pharmaceutical. You do need a hospital. And so, you just have to make, I think, wise choices and know what's best for you and for your body.
I like now there are more and more doctors who are, for example, Western doctors who are using acupuncture for acupuncture. And I think there's been more of a, I'm not sure what, I guess doctors are different too. It depends on what experience they've had or what prompts them to do it. I'm sure there's some who wouldn't want to get near a needle and others who are exploring it. But to me, it does seem like it makes sense for the two parties to work together.
Yeah, it does. For the patient, it does. For the patient. Maybe not for the practitioner, because a lot of times there's a lot of egos involved. But for the patient, absolutely.
I had a procedure once where the doctor said, because it wasn't even considered surgery because they didn't have to cut you, and the doctor was like, well, I'm not really, all in favor of that. But, if it works, I'll be your biggest champion, and if not, I'll be, there to do the surgery. And to his credit, he's been absolutely wonderful. But that's the thing. If we could all just get on the same page, right? And whatever's better for the patient, not necessarily for the doctor.
Right.
I think would be really an amazing thing. So I have to share something with the viewers here. Now they can't see because you're sitting down, but Sharon is this fit, petite little thing, and she and her husband ride motorcycles that are bigger than she is. And so this is shift a little bit. I just want you to take a minute and tell how did you come to be a biker chick?
Well, honestly, it was really quite by accident. I've always had a little adventurous spirit in me, and I always like things.
You're a rebel. Just go ahead and say
a little. So a few Christmases ago, I got a surprise Christmas present where Mike bought me a very large scooter. And it was large enough that it required a motorcycle license to be driven in our state. So I had to enroll in the motorcycle safety course and learn how to ride a real motorcycle and get my motorcycle license in order to register and ride what I had been given as a gift. So I got on a real motorcycle, and there was no turning back. So I went from my 150cc scooter to a 250cc motorcycle to a 600cc motorcycle, and now I'm riding a 950 Yamaha Tourer. So, and we just did a 450-mile run through 4 states over Memorial Day weekend and had a blast.
Oh, my word. So, as you were saying those numbers, does that mean that that's fast?
No, it's not so much faster, it's bigger and bigger.
Okay.
Engine size and bigger and bigger.
I have to say, though, when I'm out and I see, like, a ton of motorcycles going at once, I just think it's the coolest thing for some reason. I just kind of say out of the way, but, you know.
It's great fun. You have to be careful, but it's great fun.
Yeah. Well, you're just a fine example of this holistic person who takes care of her health, takes care of her mind, takes care of her body, rides motorcycles. Aren't you on boats and something, and you race?
Yeah, last night I raced sailboats. I crew on a 38-foot sailboat out of a racing club near us. So we just had a race last night. We race every Wednesday night in the summer. So that's a lot of fun too. I used to do a lot of sailing years ago, and so I enjoy that too.
In my next life, I'm going to be Sharon C.
Thanks.
Oh gosh. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I just want to make sure before we leave, I just wanted to kind of let people know that kind of how to get started with me if they're interested in checking out what I do.
And also any upcoming events or anything like that.
Yep. Okay, so I've learned that it really is a joint decision between me and the potential person. So what I do is I offer a call that's called It's All About Me, meaning it's all about the client, because the coaching work that I do with people is really all about them. And there aren't too many places in the world that we get to go now where it's all about us and somebody truly hears us and listens to us and pays attention to us. So I offer a free complimentary 1-hour It's All About Me call. And that's where we come together and you share with me what your dreams and desires are for a healthier, more vibrant life, maybe what your struggles have been, what's worked for you, what hasn't worked for you. And at that time, we kind of come together and we talk and we see if we're a good fit, if my style is going to fit with you, and if what you're looking to accomplish is something that I can provide to you. So it's a no-risk way for people to kind of check out what I do and see if we're a good fit together.
And tell us your website again.
It is www.vitalizedwellness.com. And there's a link right on the website to contact me. You can fill in your name and information, and it comes right to my inbox, and I can get in touch with you right away.
Love it. Vitalized Wellness. Vitalized Wellness. Who doesn't want that? I think we all want that. Sharon, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your expertise, your beautiful smile, your life story. I had no idea about the Italian part of the family, the other part of the family. I have all the images now of you growing up. So it's really been, educational for me, and I'm sure the viewers, and I've learned a lot, and I'm going to take it with me. I am going to take it with me because you've shared some tips that are going to be really useful and beneficial. So I encourage all of you out there in TV land to connect with Sharon. She's out there to help, and she's got lots of expertise to help you do it. And I thank all of you for joining me here again on the Positivologist Who's in the House. Remember, it's all about bliss. BLISS. Believe life is something special, because it is, and so are you. And I encourage you to take a walk through the landscape of positivity. I'm sure you're going to completely appreciate the view. Connect with me at www.positivebliss.com, and I'll see you again next time right here on the Positivologist is in the House. Many blessings, and namaste.
Namaste.